fast forward, when I went now to my university, the telecommunications university, of course, that's where he was. We were in the same hostel. I was given a room on the 5th floor. He was on the 2nd floor. I never saw him. But he saw you. He saw me. I never saw him. There was another Ghanaian student who was in a year ahead of me, called Steve. I saw that one, but I didn't see this one. I was like, so anyway, when we ended up meeting, we didn't meet at the school. We met at a Crusade ground. And that Crusade ground is just those things of, I'm bored, what am I doing? I hear there's a crusade. Let's go. So I just took myself to a crusade. Far, it's like 2 hours, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 hours by underground, by metro. I go to this crusade ground and I'm sitting there among Russians and I'm just looking. And at the stage, the crusade was being run by Americans. They were coming there to come and run a crusade. And I'm looking and I'm seeing Americans singing there and there's a black among them. Okay, maybe he's a black American. That's him. I have no clue. So the next day, I invite my roommate, a Russian roommate who is it third year? I invite her and I say, come, let's go to this crusade. It's being run by Americans and it's amazing. Yeah. I'm trying to evangelize to her. So she's like, okay, I'm actually doing nothing. I'll go, but I won't stay too late. I'm like, okay, let's go. So we go and they start praise and worship and he's like, oh, that's our Francis. I'm like, which one? He said, the guy singing there. He was the lead singer. He's in my class. I'm like, no, these are Americans. You don't know them. Maybe they just look alike. He's like, no, I know that guy. He's in my class. He's from Ghana. I'm like, really? In our school? But I know all the Ghanaians in our school. That one is from our school. So we argue and say, okay. She says, after the service, I'll go with you. I said, after the service, normally they pray for people. So we'll go in front there and see if it's somebody who knows you. So after the service, the people are lining up to be prayed for, and his queue is one of the longest. And I go and queue behind, and Adelina, my roommate, is in front. And she's like, this is Francis. I don't know how you don't know him. Yeah? He's in our school. So we get there, almost there, and Francis looks up and says, oh, Adelina, you are here. Hi. I'm like, oh, okay. They know each other after all. So I'm now feeling really terrible. I'm like, I've lost the bets. He greeted Adelina with so much pomp, and me, it's just hi. And I'm like, hi. So Adelina says, you see, I told you it's our Francis. Anyway, now me, I have to leave. I'm like, what about me? Then Francis says, oh, if you want to wait, he says now in English, not in Russian. If you want to wait, let me pack the equipment and then I'll get a taxi and we can go together. And I'm thinking, go together where? I, to this point, don't believe that we are living in the same hostel, because how have I not ever seen the guy? If we are living in the same hostel. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, a free lift. The Kenyan me, of course, anytime. So I'm like, I can help you. So we pack the microphones, we pack everything. As we're packing these things inside, now the American preachers look at us and say, oh, Francis' wife is here today. And Francis said, no, she's not my wife. I don't even know her. And I'm like, no, it's not Francis' wife. I just met the guy. I don't know him. Then they start teasing him and all. They're like, we are prophesying. This is definitely Francis' wife. We've never seen him before with any girl. Now today I'm like, how long have you been singing with these Americans? Anyway, so many questions are going on in my mind. Anyway, so we pack the things, and then he gets a taxi, and then he sits in front, and I sit behind there. And then every time he looks behind, I'm talking, and he looks behind, and I'm thinking, what a big nose he has. Gosh. How big can a nose be? So I keep doing this to compare mine and his. So we drive this 2-hour journey, and then he says, where should I drop you? He too, he's doubting that we are in the same hostel. I'm like, oh, I'm going to Studentious. I give my street and I give the hostel, and he's like, she's stalking me. She can't be going to the same street I'm going. But in his mind, he's determined, anyway, I'll just drop you, and then I'll go to my hostel. Because there are several hostels on that street. So we arrive at his hostel, and my hostel, of course, and we all get out, and I'm thinking, where are you going? And I'm sure he's also thinking, and where are you going? That was the first time I realized we were in the same hostel. I was on the 5th floor and he was on the 2nd.
It was very interesting that we were in the same hostel and we never knew each other, even in the same school, because most of the professors who taught me were her professors also. And but the first time I thought I saw her was with the friend of ours called Stephen. He's a year behind me, but Joseph was 2 years behind me then. So we are in summer that year. I didn't travel. We normally travel out of the country to go and have a break. You go to UK and all that. So we were at the foyer, and we were looking for letters, because those days you can only communicate with letters. You send a letter, it will take 3 months to get to its destination. It is responded, you get it after 3 months. So you give yourself 6 months. So when you get a letter from home, it's like Christmas has come. So we're studying there. I was chatting with this friend of mine called Stephen. Then she came along, Josephine came along. And she only greeted that guy. She didn't greet me. So I just kept quiet. I really felt offended. So when she walked away, I asked my friend Steve, who is that girl? So that's Josephine. She's from Kenya. I said, how come she greeted only you and she didn't greet me? I said, I don't know. I said, okay. And I think that summer, I didn't travel and we didn't meet again, actually. So when she came to the Crusade ground, that's a stadium which handles about 40,000 spectators. And this is a very big crusade because it was running for 18 months. So every month we do 4 days. Every month we do 4 days from a team from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So when they came, because we happened to set up a church there, and also being part of the lead singers, and I could sing both English and Russian, it was easier for them to communicate. And also in terms of coordinating things, I can speak both languages. So it was comfortable for them to let me be part of the team. So we have been helping in the mornings and in the evenings. So when she came to join my queue after the service, we actually have to pray. And I don't know why people have to come and queue. Be in my queue, making it the longest after every service that we had. Because one time I prayed for one lady. She came with some medical report. And I said, well, so I explained to her that I'm not the healer. I'm not the one who heals. It's God who heals. So if you allow God to heal you, He will do that. So she said, you pray for me. I prayed for her. That was about 2 crusades earlier. That was 2 months earlier. So this third time she came with a new medical report. He said, I've been looking for you. See, this is the new report, and this is the old one. You remember I came to ask you to pray for me? I couldn't even remember. He said, you will remember because I told you this. And I said, okay. Okay, of course, I was trying to say okay just to pacify her, but I really couldn't remember. I said, you prayed for me and I got healed. So I brought my friends also, so you can pray for them. I said, hey, he's like, okay. So I still have to now pray for them also. So we spent some time, and they were in the queue, and the queue was quite long. I think the time we were finishing, it was around midnight. So when Josephine got to my side and I greeted the friend, and of course, I was trying to be as far as possible from her. I couldn't remember that she was the one I saw, I think 2 years earlier in our hostel. So you were tired? I was tired. If I was finished. So after greeting her, I said, oh. Then I look at the time, it was quite, so I was asking, where is Adelina? There's a friend. So she has already left. I said, okay. The most important thing is you cannot get, the time you run from here to the underground and go and get what you need to do, you might have not been able, you will not be able to get to where you are going. So just wait for me. I finish. We are normally given a taxi at the end of the session. And then now we can go together. I'll drop you wherever it's supposed to be, and then I will continue. So when we got into the taxi, this lady was talking. Chop, 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 chop. I said, my goodness, I just want peace of mind. I just want to rest. She was talking the whole 1.5 drive we had. And I said, hey. So I looked behind. She was still talking. I looked behind. She was still talking. And I said, okay, let me just keep quiet. So at least her talking kept me awake to where we were going. So I was asking her, where should I drop you? Because I don't know where she was going. He said, no, we are on the same road. So when we got to the roundabout getting down to our hostel, I said, okay, we have hostels along here. We have hostel number 2, number 3, number 5, number 7. Which one? Because ours is the second one, number 2. So that when I drop at number 2, she can continue with the driver. I'll pay the driver, and then she can continue the driver to her hostel. But I said, I would not like to drop you first. I would not like to drop you last. I want to make sure that you get to where you are going before I get to my hostel. So when I got, he said, no, this is the hostel I'm coming to. I said, you can't be serious. Of course, we got down, and I said, okay. She also started doubting, are you sure you are in this hostel? So he said, okay, I want to see which house or which room you are going to open. I said, this is my key, room number 215. So I went there, I opened the door. I said, this is my, he said, oh, okay. So I'm also on the 5th floor. I said, which 5th floor? So it's like, it's a shock to the two of us to know that we're in the same hostel for 2-3 years and we never met in that level. But as Josephine said, the first time the pastoral team saw us at the stadium, they just said, oh, if I remember one of the then evangelists called R.W. Shambach saw us and said, oh, Francis, your wife is here. I nearly melted. And I wish the ground can swallow me up because I said, this is an embarrassment. This lady will think I've gone to tell people about her. Just now we have met for the first time. So he held us on both sides. He said, no, take us a photo. I don't know where I placed that photo, but he put us in a prophesy over you guys that you will be a couple that God will use. So, I was sweating in that cold. It was winter, by the way. I was sweating. I said, what is this guy saying? This lady, I'm meeting her for the first time, and you're talking about, I was so uncomfortable. So he left us there. I continued with the machine and everything. I rode the machine now to the store. Then I met now the organizer of the crusade, called Billy Joe Dougherty and the wife. The wife actually was the one who saw us first, called Sarah. Is it Sarah? Yeah, Sarah. She said, oh, Francis, your wife is here. You never told us. I said, my goodness. So she called the husband behind there and said, Billy, come and meet Francis' wife. I was just like, I didn't know what to say. I couldn't just deny in front of her. I couldn't, I just said, okay. Trying to explain to them that they didn't want to hear that. So they talk about that. They prayed for us. So we left there. So for me, when we were sitting in the car, I was like, what would this lady be thinking about that? Did I go and say anything? Because first of all, we never left each other. So when did these people know that she was my wife? And that's how things came up, and that's how we met. And as she said, we didn't meet anywhere else but on a crusade ground.
Now, after the crusade was over, he invited me to church. He said, by the way, if you're not doing anything on Sunday, we have service at Varietz Maladiers. It's like the youth. There's a youth palace that we have services there. So at that point, I'd been looking for churches. So I'd go to this one, I'd go to that one. And I was like, oh, I would come and see. I'll come and see what you guys do there. So that Sunday, I went to church. And as I arrived in church, they say the same thing. Francis' wife has come.
The same people or different?
Now these are Russian. This is a Russian church now with students like them helping in setting up the church. And I'm like, no, I don't even know the guy. I was just invited to church and you're calling me the wife. Then there were visiting pastors from Australia then, Chris and Ruth. So Chris also says, oh, Francis, you didn't tell us your wife is here. And I'm like, I don't know him. We're in the same school, that's about it. But I don't know the guy. It's like, then I prophesied. Francis needs a wife. I'm sure you need a husband. Why not? And I'm like, I'm not coming to this church again. That's all you do in this church. Pairing people up. I'm not coming. But after the service, they invite us to, they're going to have a barbecue. Now Pastor Chris and the wife said, oh, if anyone wants to come, they'll be going outside town, they'll meet and all. And I'm like, well, if I'm not doing anything, I'll come on Saturday. He said, of course you're coming. I've already told Francis to come with you. I'm like, why are you burdening the poor guy with me? I will come by myself. I won't come with Francis. He says, no, you will come with Francis. So now the next Saturday, again, I'm hanging out with them. And everyone is like, people are pairing up, and they're like, oh, of course, this is Francis' wife. Literally, nobody is taking us seriously that we don't know each other. First, when we say that we're in the same hostel, then we say we are in the same school. So how don't you know each other? We're like, we've never seen each other. We saw each other last week for the first time. But we begin to I like the church. I begin to go to church, definitely. I plug into ministry. I'm now with the women's ministry. I'm doing what? Francis is very busy with the worship team and things like that. Then we begin, in our own hostel, we start a fellowship, a students' fellowship. So several students from Africa, from wherever, for international students. It was called International Students Fellowship. Yeah. He's a leader. I'm, of course, assisting. We start having, we even go and apply for a room, and we're given a meeting room. So we begin to just be very busy with the work of God. We are like two independent people, completely just loving what God is doing in their lives, not thinking of marriage at all.
Not even dating.
Not dating. We are just doing what God wants us to do. We go here, we go there, we are doing our work. But everybody else around us is saying, we know how this will end. We just know how this will. We are watching you guys. So even at school, some of his professors begin to say, oh, so this is going to be your wife. And I'm like, what's wrong with people? Can you just leave us alone? You have never seen me with him before, so now you see me with him one day and I'm his wife. And then, at some point, some ladies in church who are very interested in Francis, who have been waiting for his proposal for the longest, and he's not saying anything. And I can read the signs of the times, so I'm beginning to tell him, what's wrong with you? You need to talk to Galia. And he's like, what's wrong with Galia? And I'm like, no, Galia wants you to say something about your relationship. And he's like, which relationship? I have no relationship with Galia. Then I'm like, there should be one. He's like, look, I told God when I left Africa that I'm only going back with an African girl. So if God has to move Africa to bring that girl here, he has to do that. But it's definitely not a Russian girl. And I'm like, that's very strange, because there's several people in this church who already seem to have hope. You must have somehow indicated this to them. And of course, me, the African person I am, I'm trying to connect the wires quickly so that we can proceed. Yes, I'm engineering this thing. He's like, no, please stop disturbing me. So one time at fellowship, because some of the Russians are coming to the fellowship, one time at fellowship, now he stands there and says, let it be known that me have told God that it can only be an African girl. So if there is anybody, please, who is hoping, let's just pray that God would give you the right person, because it's not me.
In front of everybody?
In front of everybody. See, the fellowship almost scattered.
What?
Yeah, in fact, one lady left church, not just fellowship. She only came back after she was married.
Yeah.
She went out there, got married to somebody else, and then came back after. But it was a tough time. So at that time, in fact, many of the Russians stopped coming to fellowship. It became an international students' fellowship from that point. So we continue going to school together. Now me, I've become a complete, I'll come and consult Oh, do you have some food? Do you have sugar? Ghanaians are amazing people. They cook all the time. So this guy will cook for the week, and then put all the food in the fridge. Some of us, one of the things we are sure to have is a tea bag and a kettle. So from school, we will swing by, buy some bread, come plug in the kettle. As it's boiling, you're changing your tea and your bread is ready and you're done. So when I'm really hungry and it's cold, I'll be like, do you have any food? He's like, yeah, we have food. He's boiling this or the other. So I became a very regular visitor to his room. So one time I'm going through his photos. Now that was the strangest thing. I'm going through his photos and I'm like, this is very strange. I have these photos. Now I'm seeing the photos of my preparatory school. I'm like, I was there this day. I never saw you. You were singing where we were singing the Christmas carols. I was like, were you there? You were singing that day. You are the main singer of the Ghanaian singing group. I heard there was a Ghanaian singing group, but I never saw you people. It's like, yeah, I was there. So I ran upstairs and bring my album. And I'm like, this is me. I was also singing that day. He didn't see me. And he saw the Jamaican lady. That was the funny thing. He's like, Angela. I remember Angela singing. I'm like, but next to Angela is in this me. I was also there singing. So I was like, how did God just blind us and we didn't see each other? Until we came here now, it's almost 3 years later, is when we are seeing each other.
Standing in front of everyone that time, I think the time she made it aware to me that this is what people are looking at, I was totally oblivious about what was going on around me. So I said, I don't have the time to be calling each and every person to tell them. And I said, the only platform I have, or I had that time, was because now I was a leader of the fellowship, because it was out of the fellowship that the church came up. So we continue having it as we multiply or bring people to church. So I said, I have one announcement, just by the way. So when I told them what I had in mind, everybody kept quiet. In fact, some people couldn't swallow what was in their mouths. And I said, oh, you mean, I just said, Mama, you mean so this was true? Oh, okay. So I also did as if nothing has happened. So the next week where we need to have the fellowship, of course, those days you don't have mobile phones. So nobody can call you whether they are coming or they are not coming. They just appear. So because we'll be meeting at 4 p.m. on Saturday, we'll see you next time. But of course, it's a Saturday, so Sunday we will meet each other in church and then agree on the following week. I think only a handful of people came. And that was the sequence of events after that. This lady called Victoria was the one who was even translating the English songs into Russian. So we really worked hand in hand together for a long time. And not knowing, because I was thinking that time that because we have been so close together, we have been doing the translation together and all that, she was thinking maybe I was interested in her. So when I said that this is my plan and this is what I have asked God for, she got offended. She was one of the people who really, really got offended, and she stopped coming. She even stopped coming to the main church. She moved to another church. So I really followed her up. I think she went to a sister church. So I followed her up one time and I said, look, I didn't mean any harm to anybody. That is what I felt you guys need to know, so that you stop worshiping me and worship the God you came for. Because I'm not God. I'm just a vessel to be used. So it took some time, I think over a year or so, before she was able to come back to herself and agree that I was not made for her, including the other ladies called Galia and some Irina and all that. But they recovered very fast, and we continued doing it. But this lady was very, very hurt. And I said, I didn't mean to hurt you, but I just want to be clear. I didn't know who to call and tell, because I didn't have any of you in mind. So that's why I did that. But maybe from my naivety, because I didn't know how to handle it myself when I was told that. So that's how things happen. So we continued, and it happened to be done. It moved from a full mixture of both citizens and non-citizens fellowship into a more of an African or international people away from Russia. Yeah, so we have people from Kenya, from Uganda, from Zambia. We had from Ghana, of course. We had, and then that's how we ran for the next few years.